right, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bourbon Over Baseball with your host Bob and co-host Peter.
Nice to be back, Bob.
Today we just continue along. We got the the current World Series champion Red Sox, and one of the second highest point totals in the MLB Showdown game that we have put together.
Easily one of the best teams, at least pure points-wise, I've ever seen naturally assembled. Over 5,600 points. This team has some absolute monsters on it and should be a lot of fun to play with as a unit and to pick individual cards from in standard draft.
I agree. When I was looking through this, I see tons of potential for people to draft with. And I believe also, as you're saying, these that you and Mike, the Matthew do, with the team versus, it's going to be just a powerhouse of a lineup.
It's going to be very difficult to navigate. One of those teams with a bunch of on-base nines at the top. They've got some speed in there. They've got a lot of power.
Fielding. They got everything.
Yeah, and then you got Chris Sale and Craig Kimbrell in the pitching. It's the dominant team, for sure.
Speaking of then, let's real quickly, we took pretty much the original concept from the 2000 with the color scheme on this one. There's not much to do with the Red Sox in terms of their color scheme. They are red. They are historic.
Yeah.
Ever unchanging, so we went with that here. I think they came out really crisp and clean.
Yes.
The one person that's going to lead off the team is, as we just found out a couple days ago, is the MVP. So that card is on here as well as the rest of the monster lineup. But this guy became one of the 11s. If you want to talk about Mookie Betts.
God, Mookie is an absolute terror. It's really difficult to discern whether he or Trout is the best card in the game. Kind of like the MVP voting. Depends on sort of your own style and flavor. But with Mookie, you get +3 fielding as a corner outfielder, which is insane. But that's his Gold Glove defense. And what the analytics told us, he's got 22 speed. The absolute terror on the base paths. Gets on, walks at 5 with an on-base 11. 19 to 20 home run. Might underwhelm some people, but it's still an amazing power when you think of how many charts he's going to get. Triple at 18, double at 15, the solid single plus at 14. This guy is going to be an absolute first-round pick lock for a lot of people in drafts.
Yeah, I agree. He's he is a lot of points, obviously, with 610 points, but you're getting an 11, which there's only 2 of, and the other one is obviously the other MVP candidate. These guys are by far the best in all of baseball. But with this guy especially, you get speed, you get pop, you get multiple fielding, including Gold Glove. You know, if you're drafting and you need a left fielder, right fielder, this is the guy. He's going to give you one of the highest point totals in the game at that position. If not, he can slide over to center field. His whole entire chart's filled. He is exactly what he was for the Red Sox, an all-around great player, an all-around great card.
Yeah.
As we continue down through the lineup, Andrew Benintendi, which again, great outfielder, great speed, great on base. He's not necessarily flashy, but just solid.
He's honestly someone I would target probably over Mookie just because of his less expensive card, but with still a lot of extra base potential. I love looking at where guys hit single plus because a lot of times that's just going to be a double the way my friends and I play. Great for RBIs, a lot of speed.
Do you play the automatic stolen base in the original rules?
We play it's a double if it's automatic stolen base. So he's on second.
Yes.
A lot of times we just put double rather than single and stolen base. It doesn't really matter. So he's on second if it's free. Correct. And if there's a guy on second, we say he scores without a throw and he's stuck on first base.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so with ours, it is a try and true single. So then if second base is open, the owner has the ability to steal second. And it's not automatic. He has the choice to. Now, what I do is you only get so many owner decisions a game, and one of those
Okay.
owner decisions is stolen bases. So you only get X amount of stolen bases a game. These ones do not count towards that total. So a single plus is a chance for a stolen base without using your owner decisions, but it gives them not only, but it gives them plus
Yeah.
3 to his speed. That's what we do. So it is a boost. And usually it is for these guys that have the higher speeds anyway.
Yep.
It's worked out very well in my league. The single pluses are, very high end stolen bases. They usually do not get thrown out.
Yeah.
But it's not a guaranteed either. So I hated that the original rules had the guarantee. I think nothing is guaranteed. So I always like to have there's an opportunity for a throw out.
No, I really like that wrinkle to the rules, and it just shows that a lot of fan innovations to the game just make it more and more interesting as time goes on.
Absolutely. I mean, the original rules came out and they adapted. And obviously, 2001 cards came out. The game changed a little bit. So I like taking the original game that especially me and you love, and tweaking it with my own custom rules with my friends, because we don't play with strategy cards, and therefore we can make owner decisions to increase the complexity of the game. And so it's not just roll a dice, continue, but it does become, ooh, do I actually want to steal here? Ooh, do I want to send this runner? Should I go for a double play? Should I go for the lead runner? But anyway, that's off topic. Back to some of that you made me put into the set because of his great World Series performance.
Yeah.
But he actually had a good year.
Yeah, the literal last person added to the set, player number 601.
Yeah.
Steve Pierce.
Yeah, he looks great.
Yeah, he had a fantastic season. And what's maybe surprising to some people, he earned all this with the limitations and depreciations we put on players who don't hit the requisite plate appearances
Correct.
numbers.
He would have been a 10 on base, correct?
Yes, so he got depreciated a little bit because he only had a little over 200 plate appearances, so he got knocked in terms of his standing in it, and we don't, just pure extrapolate the power numbers. There's a little regression calculated in, and yet here Steve Pierce is on base 9, homer at 18, absolute sort of classic middle of the order bat.
Yeah, I think he's not great speed, but very good pop, very good on base.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a solid card. Someone's drafting this guy for sure. He's getting picked up.
Yeah, and then he's supported by the best power hitter in baseball,
Absolutely.
or at least in the Showdown set.
Well, and probably in baseball too. I mean, he wasn't too far out of the MVP runnings, and some of the old school analytics people would have liked to see him because he was a triple crown candidate for a while. But JD Martinez coming up as a 10 on base.
Oh yeah, and with a surprising amount of speed for me, and that I think just pushes him sort of over the top in terms of value.
Mm-hmm.
He's got one of my absolute favorite types of cards ever since the original Larry Walker. The on base 10, homer at 17. Love that he doubles at 14, walks at 4. This is a guy who you plug into your lineup in the 3 or 4 hole, and you can expect that he's going to get a 400-ish on base percentage, probably going to hit over 300, and going to hit a bunch of home runs and get a bunch of RBIs for your Showdown team.
Yes, the fun thing about this card was the speed, obviously, as you know, and maybe not all of our listeners know, is based on not just their physical speed, because he's not that fast, but it's based on how well does he advance on singles and doubles, and how well he tags up, and how well he runs the bases. It takes everything into consideration in terms of speed. So, yeah, he may not be the fastest guy in the league, but he moves around the bases, and which is what in Showdown happens a lot. You get a single, can he go to third? Well, in real life, maybe he knows he's reading the pitcher while he's reading the bat, balls in play. The other fun thing is, because of the injuries in the Red Sox, he actually got a lot of outfield experience, because I initially had this guy as a DH, but he did play the outfield, he played left field, right field, and but he wasn't that good. He got the +0. But I think that's fun then for people that he is not the DH that people thought he was going to be, and that he can do the Larry Walker, where he is a +10 or a 10 on base and a 17 home run.
Yeah. And then as we go along, we've got another on base 9.
Yeah, it just continues.
So the onslaught of high on base guys keeps rolling on with Xander Bogaerts, who much better year than I would have expected. Double at 14. just an absolute monster in terms of hitting it into the gaps, apparently.
Yeah, I like him a lot as a player. I thought he was the one that on their team they said had been on their original lineup from their other World Series team a few years back.
The only one left.
Yes. But yeah, he's a great player. And then you continued on by another late addition. But the Boston just did such a good job with these players that maybe weren't initially their big players in the beginning of the year, but they playoff hopefuls. In the playoffs, Brock Holt became amazing.
Brock Holt,
yes.
one of my friends and I's favorite players, thanks to our Arrested Development fandom. We gotta love Brock Holt. And here you get a little positional flexibility, not much defensive addition for him here, but still 16 speed, and then that all-important on-base 8 for only 250 points. Gives you a guy that, you can fill into either or position, so then later in the draft you can see whether a high defensive second baseman or shortstop becomes available, and then just switch Holt between the two. And still gives you 16 to 19 range of doubles, which, Holt's going to be a guy who's probably plugged into the bottom half of your lineup. And just having a higher arm base guy who can get those extra bases is going to be really key to lengthening your lineup and producing some perhaps surprising runs that people weren't expecting.
I totally agree. I think he's a solid player. Not too flashy, but he's going to get on base. He's going to get hits. He's going to get there for you. As it continues, it starts to drop off a little bit after that. These are some of the people that are on the team that filled in the gaps. You got Rafael Devers and Christian Vasquez took over, I think, halfway through the season at catcher. These guys aren't going to make or break you. Rafael Devers has a lot of power, but nothing crazy. But Jackie Bradley Jr., we'd probably talk about him. Great speed, not a great on base, a little bit of pop, but talk about this guy.
Yeah, so and briefly, I'll just say that Devers and Vasquez were sort of illustrative of a lot of the guys that we had. So Moreland and Leone and Kinsler were all in the lineup before we got Holt and Pierce added. And honestly, this lineup didn't look so great, and I didn't understand how they were an 108-win team. Because they're kind of just disappointing players that, you're right, won't be drafted. But Bradley Jr., 180 points for an on-base 6 might cause some people to take a step back. But speed A22, center fielder +3, which I'll let you talk about in a second here, and sort of the fluctuation in the Jackie Bradley Jr. process and the argument that his defense isn't as good as people think. But what stands out to me is with the great defense and speed, you do get single plus at 10, double at 11, which means
50% of the time. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, so, if you do get that rare JBJ chart, you're going to make people pay.
Absolutely. I mean, just doubling at 11 just makes me go, holy crap. Like, when I roll that dice, things are going to happen. But yeah, so back to the defense. When I look at the defensive things, I look a lot about defensive runs saved and their overall defensive performance. And I initially did not have him as a +3. I know that he does make these all-star catches, and he's got such tremendous speed and zone coverage. But his defensive run saved metric was down this year tremendously. Usually he was like what I consider like a +4 center fielder, where he would have like 20 plus defensive run saves, where he's beyond measurable to most people. This year, Mookie Betts had that 20 plus defensive run saves, but Jackie Bradley did not. He in my opinion was a +1 center fielder, but he does have this incredible arm strength. There's a couple other metrics you can look at, and it does give him at least an argument to be a little higher. So then I started debating, should he be a center fielder +2? Should he be a center fielder +3? We would go back and forth. Then obviously MLB says that he deserves a chance for the Gold Glove in the conversation. So I said, you know what? I think he probably can do it and does deserve the +3. It makes him a more interesting card. But I can go either way on this one. I could have put him as a +1. I don't mind him as a +3. I hated putting him as a +1 because my visual perception is that he's a +3. But I was just trying to do it straight statistically. So, people will argue or not argue, I guess, depending. But I do end up liking this card now better as a +3.
Yeah, definitely makes it a lot more playable. And the theme of great defense is continued as we move to the bench here, where from my perspective, just sort of playing with the full teams against other full teams, I'm excited at my ability as a manager to protect a lead by bringing in Mitch Moreland for Steve Pearce, Ian Kinsler I would bring in for Bogarts and shift Holt to shortstop, and suddenly I've added 7 fielding to my infield,
Yeah, Ian
just
Kinsler
like
was a
in a
Gold
snap.
Glove second baseman almost, and yeah, he I think he booted that one ball in the playoffs, but other than that, I mean, he
Yeah.
was tremendous. But he's not what he used to be.
No.
But still keeping that glove down, which is great. So he might find a spot in the team. People want sometimes a second base +5, but like I said, or like you said, I think that's great that in a team chemistry, you could slide him in late game. I want the defensive part of my team to show.
Which is really exciting because oftentimes, because showdown cards are just the raw stats, and so every single time you've got someone coming up, you kind of just want whoever gives you the best advantage, and that rarely is any of your bench players.
Correct.
So
It does make it interesting.
fun. Yeah.
And I don't know if the other two we even have to talk about. I think they
No.
are disgusting, but I do appreciate now seeing a lot of times people don't see this, but a 4 on base.
Yeah.
Sandy Leon, I'm not sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but he was terrible.
It was really bad.
There was a stretch, I believe they said that he was like, I don't know what it was, 20 something, 30 something at bats. That he had not got a hit or something. It was bad.
He had a 232 on base percentage. His batting average was 177. Absolute just mess of a hitter.
This is a guy that I wish I could just say good luck having him on your team. But 10 points is the minimum. 10 points is all he costs.
Yep, and yeah, Christian Vasquez looks so much better by comparison. He had a 257 on base percentage and 207 average. There was a lot of guys who were on base 5s on the Red Sox, and I'm glad we ended up adding on base 9 Pierce and on base 8 Holt.
Yeah.
Just to give them a more representative team of the possibly best team of the century this year.
Correct. And as you continue, a big reason why they did so well, besides JD Martinez and Mookie Betts, is the Chris Sale we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And so this card looks super dominant.
I mean, it's and a real throwback, as the original Showdown fans will note. It's a very similar card to Pedro Martinez, but 40 points less because he lost an IP. But he is an absolute stud, which makes sense based on his incredible numbers. Yes, he did have an ERA over 2, but a .861 WHIP ended up putting him in the Tier 1 category, and got 13 and a half strikeouts per 9. Absolutely dominant pitcher. He should be someone who gets taken in drafts, I would expect.
Yeah, I thought for sure if he would have stayed healthy and pitched the whole year, he would have been a Cy Young candidate, even more so than Verlander maybe was.
Yeah.
Especially with his team winning the World Series, but he doesn't get the innings, and obviously Snell moves in there. But this card looks phenomenal. I mean, 1 through 17 out. Someone's drafting this guy and just winning a game hypothetically on just this card alone.
Yeah, and it's I think it's going to be interesting because Blake Snell also reached the Tier 1 category, as did DeGrom. And one of the neat things is all 3 of them are the different representation of control.
Yeah.
So DeGrom's a control 4 with 1 to 18 out, and he does have the 7 IP, but how much do people value control versus the outs on the chart? Chris Sale is the guy who's right in between and sort of that perfect middle ground of you get the control 5 and a bunch of outs. While obviously Snell is incredible, but only 1 to 16 outs. Only. In quotation marks.
Yeah.
There, but definitely interesting strategy because you can really only afford to roster one of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and especially in a draft league, which is most of the leagues I do. You're taking one ace. I mean, you're not the freaking Cleveland Indians or the Houston Astros here, but you could take maybe a Chris Sale or maybe a DeGrom or maybe a Schnell, but that's it. You can't afford 2.
And it does seem like the Red Sox sort of, at least followed, if not copied, that sort of draft strategy with the tier 3 classic 450 point, very David Cohn like David Price.
Yeah, I actually like this card a lot too. I like a basic 5 to 115 out guy. They're solid. They always do well. And seeing a guy about 450 seems like he can slot into a lot of teams.
Yep. Sort of the quintessential number 2 pitcher at that 450. I always think between 430 and 460 is like my range for the guy I'd target to be my number 2 starter, and Price is right there.
Yeah, I like him a lot. With Rick Porcella, he's okay. Nothing bad about him. He just loses the control.
He honestly disappointed me based on some of the fantastic performances he had during the season and his reputation, past Cy Young winner, 17 wins, but in the end, just the 4.28 ERA kind of sunk him and pushed him down a tier. And he's useful, but definitely a number 3, number 4 starter. Same with Eduardo Rodriguez there.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a guy with only 5 innings pitched here. 116 out's not bad, but you're right. They did basically draft a team with their value.
And then I have to note that Evaldi sort of just missed the cut. He only pitched 111 innings, which just wasn't quite enough to pass Eduardo and get a card. But I'm sure that the postseason sort of hero, though maybe a little overstated. Hot take: he would not have deserved the World Series MVP if he won that game he came into relief for. Because he pitched a long time, but he blew the save.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not credit the guy who blew the save and got a loss too much. But he's probably going to end up with a card in the pennant run edition that we're hoping to just put out a few guys who didn't make the set. Once spring training rolls around, he might not be in Red Sox colors. Might be whoever he signs with this offseason. Just a little taste of maybe some exciting free agent cards to come.
Yeah,
maybe Harper.
There's one on the Indians that didn't make the cut. That was the free agent that might find a team, and I want to put him somewhere too.
And Josh Donaldson, he's going to get his 2017 numbers, which were awesome. So that'll be a lot of fun. And there's rumors about Corey Kluber being on the move, maybe to Milwaukee. And if I have to put a beautiful Control 5. 1 to 16 out, Corey Kluber on that beautiful Milwaukee wheat background. You better believe I'll do it and print that sucker off.
Oh, man. So let's go to the bullpen really quickly. With nothing too crazy here. One of them actually gives up a home run. Nothing to go home about. Nothing to crow home about here. Hector Velasquez was okay. Joe Kelly, average.
Yeah.
These guys are 3s and 2s, but there was one shining star, and that's Craig Kimbrell.
As always, he might be a free agent too this year.
A lot of
random guys on the market. He's an absolute beast. 1 to 12 strikeout, no doubles allowed. Only 1 to 16 out, which for Kimbrell is an only. But still, a fantastic card, 220 points. You're getting your points worth and fantastic value to your bullpen with a guy like Kimbrell.
And when I made this card, I had to go with his weird pose that he does.
Awesome.
I could not. When I hear Craig Kimbrell, all I think about is this scarecrow-looking thing that he's doing. So I had to find an image to put as that. And I think when you see that then too, you go, "That's Craig Kimbrell. That's what he is."
It looks really awesome.
So that basically, in a nutshell, is the best team in baseball, hypothetically, quote.
Yep.
I'm sure there's another team that we'll talk about later that beat them in point total. That was another team that probably could have won, should have won, at least in showdown terms. But yeah, I think overall this team was what it was. It was a World Series winner. It looks great on paper. It's going to look really great too when our fans here see. Baltimore Orioles and the Kansas City Royals and go, God. Wow, how much better was the Red Sox than the rest of the league?
It's no wonder that they got to 108 wins, considering some of the really crappy competition they're going up against.
I agree. With that being said, that's going to be our take today on the Red Sox. Obviously, stay in tune next week. We'll have another team for you. Hopefully, I'll start being able to have my actual bourbon while playing that. My wife finally had her child, so I can start enjoying my bourbon again while talking about baseball. But let's at least wait 1 week. It's fresh, still fresh for us.
I think that's totally fair.
Okay,
And
so
congratulations
thank you
again on the birth of your child. That's fantastic.
so everyone, stay tuned to next week for more bourbon and more baseball.
All right, awesome.